Welcome back to the channel. This is Katie, Corey, and Olive. I don't know how long Olive will stay with us, but she may stay in the video for a little while. This video is going to be things that they do not teach you in school. I'll go ahead and put a big disclaimer here. This is my experience. This is our experience of school and what happened in our education. This is by no means everybody's experience. So I don't want to see 50 comments ripping my butt that says, how ungrateful are you for your education? Or this didn't, what are you talking about? You don't know what you're talking about. That didn't happen. This is what happened to me and to her. This is our observation, and it may not be yours. So
also, there's a big difference in schooling now versus like in the 50s, 60s, even 70s. I know that a lot of our viewers are kind of the older generation, which we love. We definitely have more in common and get along better with the older generation than our own or some of the ones that are after our generation. But bear that in mind too. This was our experience growing up in school in the early 2000s, not the 70s, the 80s, the 60s.
Right.
Whatever.
That's a very worthy note to mention, because if you went to school in the 70s and the 80s, especially if you went in the 60s or the 50s, then what we're going to talk about, all of the things that we feel gypped about are going to be things that you learned.
Yeah, so, you probably did learn, right. But we didn't.
Right. So we started kindergarten in 2001, maybe. Or was it just 2000?
2000 or 01, I guess.
Probably 01, maybe, is when we started kindergarten from. So pretty much, we'll just round that to 2000. So from 2000 to 2016, that's 16 years. We graduated high school.
In 14.
14, graduated college in 2016. So, we come up with some major kind of groupings of things, kind of broad topics about things that they don't teach you in school. Things that I didn't get taught in school. Now, I do think that these themes ring true in today's, post 2014 at least, or probably post 2010. I think these themes run throughout. I've heard a lot of people say, well, this is what I've experienced in my education, and it kind of lines up with what we experienced, for sure. So the first thing that I feel like they don't teach you anything about in school is finances.
That's a huge one. They don't teach you to balance a checkbook, which is funny because most people don't use checkbooks anymore. So I get that, but we have checkbooks, and of course we know how to balance our checkbooks. But they don't teach you that. They don't teach you really anything about finances that you need to know, and that is so important. And at least for us, not only did they not teach us about finances, when we were in college, I can remember being in a college class, and the instructor was asking the students, well, how much do you think, what did you expect to make, like, starting out? And, they listed off a number. And I won't list that number now. But I remember them listing that and thinking like, wow, for me, that sounded like tons of money. And I kind of had that in my head, like, okay. And then you go out into the workforce, and at least here where we live, I would say it's probably somewhat economically depressed. That was not true at all.
You'd be doing good to make half of that.
Yeah, so there was really no teaching about finances at all. And especially not about debt. Oh my gosh, in this, school... in the schooling that we were in, and especially just in American society, if you want it, you buy it. If you want it, you finance it. And there's no kind of information about how you should try to stay debt-free. Obviously, most people have to go in debt for a house or even for education. Sorry, that was a lot. I'll let you talk.
But it's true. Everything that she said is exactly true. There was no emphasis on you want to owe your life and your finances to the bank as little as possible. And it's not because we hate banks, it's because you want financial freedom. So how can you start now making steps toward having financial freedom? Just so you know, if you can stay out of debt, and there's things that you might miss out on the front end, but on the later end you're going to be happy and you're not going to have that stress of living paycheck to paycheck. In fact, they just encourage you, if you want it, you just take a credit card out. You can have whatever you want if you take that credit card out.
And that can mess you up for the rest of your life. The decisions that you make on this front end when you're young, that can affect you when you're 50 years old.
Yep. So, again, I just would have liked someone to say, hey, let's talk about financial decisions that you can make now to set you up later so that you feel like you can have the car. But it doesn't have to be a brand new car. You can have the house, but it doesn't have to be the big 5-bedroom, 3-bathroom house. Just that idea of longevity financially for your future.
Yes.
They don't talk about it.
Decisions that you make when you're young, that can financially be affecting you when you're in your 50s and 60s.
Right. Again, at no point do I think these people in my education got together and said, out of malice, let's make sure
let's deceive these kids.
Let's deceive these kids financially. I don't think that for a minute. It's just a bigger, higher up the chain sort of problem, and I wish that somebody would have talked to us about it and set us up instead of that encouragement of take the money out, get whatever you want, and then kind of that kind of not so true statement of you can make whatever you want to make once you get your degree.
Look, y'all, they told us that.
They did. They
serious.
said degree equals big money. So go spend a bunch of money on this degree, get you a good job, and in the first year of this job, you'll pay your student loans off. And then that's just not true. The next thing that I feel like we got nothing about, since we're in the line of finances, is kind of home ec stuff, because that goes right along with it. If you're broke, you ain't going to have a house to be doing home ec stuff in. Now, are you?
Yeah, you're going to none of that.
You're going to be doing rent-a-wreck. You know what I mean? It's like home ec when you have to rent because you broke, because you paid too much for your education, and now you just work at Lowe's, so now you do rent-a-wreck. Just, again, I'm not, this is not me being mean to anybody.
So nobody comment and say,
I work at Lowe's and I rent and you just tore me down a notch. No, I didn't.
Swear. We're not meaning that, because look, the thing is it doesn't, whatever financial goals you have, that's great. If you would rather rent than own,
do it.
You can do that. There's literally nothing wrong with that. It's what you want to do. But what's not good is when they, like for us, it was just go to college at all costs.
They lie.
It doesn't
it's
matter
misleading.
if you can afford it, and then when you go to college, you're gonna automatically have this degree and come out and start making all this money.
You feel gypped, and all I would have wanted was the information. I'm a big proponent of give all the information you can give to somebody, and then
let them make their decisions.
Let them make their decisions. They make good ones. They make bad ones. They make the decisions that they need to make for them.
As far as home ec goes, we never had that in high school. I do think there probably are still some high schools that have home ec classes.
There
if you
is.
know of that, let us know, comment below. But at least for us, there was no kind of home ec. And that could be how to wash clothes, how to cook. For us, we grew up cooking. I mean, we got all our home ec stuff at home. We could cook when we were like 10 because our parents taught us. But it would have been nice even to still have that further education and even basic stuff like washing clothes, ironing. Y'all, I still am not that great at ironing. I just be honest with you.
Exactly. And it's not even that they're, people might be like, well, that's a waste of time. You could be learning that at home. But unfortunately, not everybody gets that at home. Not everybody's parents. We just had golden parents who taught us all these things and said, like, let me impart on you the importance of being able to fend for yourself and be able to do these tasks for yourself, so that one day when you get married and move out, you're not going to feel unprepared. You can cook, clean that house, do whatever you want to do, if that's something you want to do. And there was none of that. And sometimes I just beat my head on the wall, and I just feel angry and disappointed that I spent time learning about these complicated algebra equations when they didn't even teach you, maybe you should learn how to change a flat tire. What happens if you get a flat tire?
That's a big deal.
Which are... Since then, once you get the first flat tire, Dad said, okay, stop, drop, let's have a lesson on flat tires. Right. So guess what? Guess who knows how to change a flat tire now? Guess who knows how to jump a car? But those kind of things, those are practical life skills. At some point, you're going to need jumper cables. At some point, you are going to get a flat tire. You're going to have to learn how to wash your clothes unless you're going to be stinky. Yeah. You're going to have to learn how to cook for yourself unless you're going to starve. And I don't think we just talked about if you don't have good finances, you're not made of money. You're going to run out of money eating out if you don't know how to cook for yourself. If you don't know how to clean your house, you're going to get some sort of disease. And you're going to be in financial trouble then when you got these hospital bills you can't pay for because you're living in brain-eating amoeba land. You know what I mean?
Oh my gosh, this is getting crazy. I want to go back and clarify, though, about the ironing, because, look, that's making me feel real stupid, and I'm going to get some comments.
I don't know how to iron.
I do know how to iron, and I'm not all that great at it, but I'll be honest with y'all, if something has to be ironed, I don't buy it. I will not buy clothes that have to be ironed. Yeah, if I have to iron it, I can. I just want to clarify that. Moving on. The main thing with all of this, and I think you would agree, is just it's irritating that, at least to us, that in our education, a lot of kind of really in-depth algebra, geometry, just all these subjects were really in-depth, and if you were going to go be an engineer, I get it, you need to know all that, but it's like they put everyone in the same boat, and so we all learned this like really intense, really hard to learn stuff, and we were in a dual enrollment high school, so we had college and high school, and we were actually on the college campus, so we were actually in the college classes with people who were 40, 50, 20 when we were like 16. Yeah. But that got prioritized over some of the basic stuff, because not everyone wants to go be a physicist or chemist or whatever it is. Not everyone wants to go on to be, you know, an English teacher or whatever.
Yeah, so it should be a more broad arm.
And then if you want to go be an engineer, then when
you
go
do that stuff,
get to college, or you can choose to go take those classes in high school. But we got grouped into the same thing. So instead of, hey, here's how to change a flat tire, here's how to, of course, we think growing a garden would be a great thing to teach in school. Here's some of these basic things. Instead, if the sun is shining and it's casting a shadow
on the train
track or the flagpole, my personal favorite.
Somebody will know what we're talking about.
And it casts a shadow
at
on the ground at this angle. Now find, like,
when will the train arrive?
I swear, we had stuff like that all the time, and I'm like, I'm not interested in finding the angle of how this sun is shining on the light pole or the flagpole or the train track or whatever.
Who flipping cares?
And now, if you're going to go be an engineer in that field, that's fine. But I just think that is totally prioritized wrong, and it could have been more home ecs, finances, just basic life stuff to prepare you, because I have never used any of that stuff. But what I do have to use is, can I wash these clothes together? Can I cook this stuff together? That's what I'm using on a daily basis.
Things that you have to be able to do for yourself. And like I said, lucky for us, our parents were yes. They didn't kick us out. They didn't say, you're 18, you're not my problem, get out, you know.
But it would have been helpful to learn those things in school instead of the
things that you have to do every single day. Which brings us to the next thing, problem solving and trades. That brings us to the next thing here. And I will say, just to double back about the iron in one word, polyester. Just own polyester, and then you don't have to iron, because you can't iron that stuff.
You can't iron polyester.
And you can wad it up as much as you want, and it won't wrinkle. Of course, your pores can't breathe, so don't wear it when you're sweating, because you could possibly have a stroke. You can't breathe in it. But anyway, so yeah, no finances. No home ec, no like, hey, let's talk about a worthy life learning skill, something you're going to need to know. I don't know how many times I've busted out E = MC squared and solved every problem on the daily basis. I don't know how many times I've needed to use that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's really helped me.
Let's talk about problem solving skills.
So problem solving skills.
Think about that?
Well, I know someone's going to say, that stupid train and flagpole stuff, that was for problem solving skills. And you might argue that.
Not the problems we have to solve.
Yeah. Not the problems we have to solve. That's great, but I don't flipping care about the train and the flagpole. I don't care what happens to them. I want it's real world applications. I want to apply the problem solving skills to real things I'm going to face in my life, like the financial straight of, like, how am I going to pay for all this stuff and save money and retirement, or the problem solving skills of, well, I got a nail in my tire and I'm out here in the middle of nowhere.
What are my best options?
What are my best options? And for me, problem solving would go right along with preparedness. Do you have a spare tire? Do you know how to change it? Do you have a tire plug? Do you have a way to get help? All of this, you know, preparedness and problem solving goes right along. So I wish they would have put us in those situations. Even if, they could have went outside and we could have changed a tire. We could have even talked about, pretended like, well, let's pretend you're in this situation and how are you going to get out of it? And then you could take those skills, and then it's also about building confidence, to give you the confidence that you need to run the rest of your life, to feel confident about, hey, I know I can take care of myself because I've practiced these problem solving skills. I went to high school with a boy who, bless his heart, and you might say, well, he should have known, but he just didn't know how to put out a grease fire. He was cooking French fries on a stovetop, and he overcalculated his displacement there, and he ended up with a grease fire. And he didn't know, and what do you think he did? Just what's your first reaction? He threw water on it. And he ended up spending a little time in the burn center and having some issues there. He did make a full recovery, but things like that could have been good in home ec.
Yeah,
how to smother a grease fire.
Right, or any kind of small fire in your house.
Yeah.
And about that being prepared stuff, like if you're going to go on a trip, and at least for us, we never leave the house without water, food. We've got like little backpacks, y'all. That could be a whole other video about our little preparedness backpacks in our cars, but always being prepared. And if you go somewhere, you either need to have, at least I would, a physical map, or you can print out instructions and not just always rely on your phone. What if your phone dies? What if
you drop it off a cliff?
Yeah, and of course when we were like in the early 2000s, like back in grade school, I mean, we didn't have smartphones. It was just like every once in a while people had flip phones. But all of that, is just practical day-to-day life stuff that at least average people like us, we got a bachelor's of art, y'all. So we're not out there trying to solve the, chemical equations of the world and whatnot and all that hard stuff. And for most people like us who don't go on to do those really hard, like, specialized fields, that's all I'm trying to say, is this basic stuff would have been helpful.
Right, because I didn't need to spend time doing all this pigeonhole. I mean, that's the thing. They pigeonhole everybody through the same education, which brings us to trades. I didn't need to spend the time doing the complicated physics if that's not what I'm going to do. My college degree, for the most part, has nothing to do with what I do for a living now.
And we're grateful for it. We're not saying that we don't appreciate our degrees, but...
Because I did learn something. And let me tell you something, what I learned in college. I learned a lot about people. It prepared me for the world, how, in the world, how you interact with people. I learned a lot about relationships and communication, and that helps you grow as a person, because all of life is going to be communicating on some sort of level, and you do need to have communication skills with people, whether it be the mechanic or someone that's going to do a service at your house, a plumber, calling somebody to fix whatever. I mean, you do have to have communication skills. But our next thing, like I said, it brings us into is trades. So like we were just talking about, I'm a firm believer in trades and trade schools. So, like, you ought to go into high school, and they ought to say, it should start as early as high school, and they should say, by then, you ought to know, and some people might fight me on this. Well, you can't know then, and college is about finding yourself. By the time I was 14 years old, I pretty much was like, all right, this is what I'm going to do. I always knew I wanted to work for myself. I wanted to stay at home with my parents. I love my family. I didn't want to be playing games with no people I didn't want to be playing games with. So early on, I think that you could take a route of, I'm probably going to be more arts and English because that's something I'm interested in, or I'm probably going to be more science and math. And don't worry, that's not like you can't undo it, because when you go to college, you get this other chance to do it again. So I think that it should be more like that, instead of let's make everybody take physics. You may not need it. And that time that you wasted taking physics when you were going to get out of school and end up being an English teacher, you could have been doing English.
Yeah, and for people like us who just struggle with tooth and nail, I'm not a math person, and that's not to say that you shouldn't take math. Everyone needs basic math. Everybody should have to take math.
Yeah, you have to have basic math.
But for people like us, we kind of knew, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do in high school, but I knew that I didn't want to be an engineer or anything like that. I knew that I wanted, maybe to be almost like a receptionist or have an office job, or ideally, like you said, work for yourself, or some more on a creative side. Yeah. And I don't think that you have to know exactly what you're going to do when you're in high school or even when you're in college. But I know for us, it just got pushed basically, well, you have to go to college or you won't have a good life. You won't have a good income and everything. You just have to go, you have to go, you have to go. And I'm glad we went. I wouldn't take back get my degree. I'm very thankful and appreciative of it. But I think that it's also okay to encourage people to really be intentional and think about when they're in high school. Do they want to go on to college? Would they rather go to a trade school? Do they want to go to a community college first? Do they want to just encourage options? And instead, we all got shoved through the same thing, like you said. And for some of us, people who were like super smart, I can think back about some of the high school kids that
smart
could go on to be chemists and things like that. That's great. But
and I know somebody who was really smart.
But for us, it was a absolute struggle.
It was a nightmare,
and it was just a nightmare.
It's so funny. It's like when we were in high school and in college, they used to say, you're going to miss this, you're going to want this back. And there's not been ever one single solitary day that I ever missed high school. I hated high school. I hated college, because just call it for what it is. But I could see it for what it was, is what it is. I was like, this is crap. This is a waste of my time. I could be doing anything else. And again, that was my experience. That's not to say it's a waste for everybody else. Some people have a wonderful experience.
And we understand that school and education is important. And that's not to say that we didn't have moments or certain classes or certain teachers that were good.
Yeah, that were good. Because I'm like, if somebody taught us and they're watching this, Debbie Letford, if you're watching this, I love you.
Yeah. We're not just dooming everything. It's just overall, mostly just once we got to high school, our, grade school, K through 8, was wonderful.
Yeah, and I also have to mention Miss Letford, because I got to get the Letfords. Carrie Letford and Debbie Letford, Miss Letford.
Yeah, we had several teachers.
So, the trade school part, I think that trade school should be encouraged, because let me tell you something fun about trade school now. Back then, they were like, and when I say back then, we're only talking about like 10-ish years ago, they were all like, oh, you can't go to trade school. That's where kids who don't apply themselves go. It was painted in this really negative, bad light. You won't make no money. And that's what they told us. It's where the bad kids go. The kids who wouldn't apply themselves have no other choice but to go to trade school. And guess what now? There is a shortage of tradesmen and women, shortage of welders, of plumbers, of electricians. And these people, you want to talk about who's making the money, because there is such a supply problem. They can charge anything they want because there's not enough tradesmen and women to complete the demand for service and work. So that kind of pretty much covers everything here, and the lifestyle part goes with it. That's kind of my last bracket there, is the lifestyle, helping people create a lifestyle they want to make. And I guess it was more important to play E = MC squared than figure that out.
Yeah. Another thing that I want to add to this, respectfully, is another thing that they don't teach in school that, of course, we wish is, creationism and teaching kids about God. But I say that respectfully because I know that that's in a lot of schools not allowed anymore, which to us is very sad and very unfortunate. But I just wanted to throw that in there. I think that's important. But I feel like this has been a pretty interesting video. You've got to comment below and let us know what you think. And again, this is our experience. Doesn't mean that every school is bad. It doesn't mean that there's not schools out there teaching this, and it doesn't mean if there's the schools out there that are not teaching any of this that we're condemning them. We're just saying this is our opinion. We wish that there would have been more of a focus on these things when we were in school, but there weren't. But you know what? We're very grateful that we got to go to school. We're grateful for our education nonetheless. So
that's right. Because at the end of the day, I'm like, you thank goodness, you problems is you problems, and mine is mine. So you just do whatever you need to do, and I always respect that, because I would want the same in return.
Right.
I want to treat other people how I'd want to be treated, because I want to be treated with respect. So
yes.
Those are things that they don't teach you in school, that they didn't teach me. They didn't teach you, because we were together in all of it. And I feel like it would be a fair statement to say these are still things that really aren't being taught. If you're any educators out there, I encourage you, find some of these things, work them in.
Yeah.
Tell these kids, Dave Ramsey, financial freedom.
Oh yeah. Comment below. God
Say
bless
bye,
you.
everybody. Come on, Ollie. I know you're just asleep. Oh, say bye.
Say bye. God bless you.
Did you hear her make that sound?
Yeah.
It was like the cutest ever.
Oh.
I don't want to get up. I'd rather just hold her there like that, because it was really sweet. I bet this thing's going to say 40 minutes.